This episode of 6'5 Guys is brought to you by Benchmark Barrels, world-class accuracy. Defiance Machine, defying tradition with innovation. JC Steel Targets, the industry leader in quality AR-500 steel targets.
Welcome to 6'5 Guys. I'm Steve Lawrence.
And I'm Ed Mobley.
We're sitting down with Brian Whalen of Colorado Precision Rifles.
Brian, we really appreciate you giving us an opportunity to attend one of your multi-day training sessions. And we hope to learn more about Colorado Precision Rifle, but more importantly, we look forward to discussing three important fundamentals that every long-range precision rifle shooter should be considering.
Sounds great. From my experience, the three reasons why people miss targets are their ability to squeeze the trigger, so that's how well they shoot the rifle, building position, stuff like that, their ability to manage their data, and then one of the biggest ones for everybody is their ability to read and correct for the environmentals, particularly wind. So that's, in my opinion, that's how you really want to focus your training or a training class or whatever it is that you're doing around shooting, is to make sure that you're addressing all three of those. So,
and how do you do that at Colorado Precision Rifle? Like, what's your approach in terms of addressing those fundamentals?
So my approach is we start off with a good solid class on ballistic software and how to use it, how to get it right, how to true it, how to vet it, all that stuff. Next, we're going to go out on the flat range, and we're going to go through zeroing, grouping exercises and make sure that people are getting good control of the rifle, right? And then from there, we're going to do positional shooting, stuff like that. So we've first addressed the data. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to address the ability to squeeze the trigger. And third, we're going to do a wind open class, try and do as much of it as we can in the field, so that people can start relating what they're seeing with the numbers, right? So that's where the art and science come together. And then after we've gone through and we've kind of addressed those as individual items, then we're going to tie it together. So what I found works best is to take and attack each of the individual skills, right? Reading the wind, squeezing the trigger, managing your data, firing off this position, firing that position, being efficient, dialing your scope, correcting your parallax, and then we want to tie it all together in that last day and a half, for an intro level class, tying it all together in cumulative exercises. Because you get somebody who understands one thing really well, but they don't, maybe they've spent a lot of time doing research, but then they haven't actually had the experience of tying it together. So it's the cumulative exercise. And throughout all that, we as coaches, we're standing behind, and I'm not only watching you as a shooter, but I'm watching downrange, what I'm seeing for wind indicators, then I'm watching where the splash is. And then, I like to talk to the students through the process as they're doing it, asking questions to sort of spur what it is that they're looking at and, broaden what it is that they're looking at and how they're going to deal with it. So.
I mean, so you talked about the watt, and, that's very similar to what I think a lot of other instructors or courses might cover. But one thing that really left an impression on me was really the how. There's the approach to how you execute on that, and then there's the facilities that are here. So if we could dig into that a little bit. The
facilities are a huge enabler. So to start off with, at the beginning of every class, I like to ask all the students what their goals are. What's your prior experience and what are your goals? And while that's going on, I'm kind of figuring out how I'm going to tweak the class a little left and a little right, and how I can set things up to accommodate everybody and to make sure that everybody's meeting their goals. Some shooters will be more advanced than others, so one of the things that I can do is I can say, hey, well, you're shooting prone over here. I'm going to give this guy a skill task that's going to be a little harder within that cumulative exercise to address their level while I'm still addressing the level here. The facilities are a huge enabler. I wouldn't be able to teach the way that I'm teaching if it wasn't for the facilities. I can say, okay, well, you guys have been reading the wind on this one particular section of the range for a little while. we're going to turn around 180 degrees, we're going to shoot in the opposite direction. Or we're going to move 100 yards down the rim and shoot in another direction. And the things that we're going to do there are we're going to address different positions as well as different wind conditions. So often guys, they get used to shooting on one range. A lot of times it's a flat square range. And you can really, like, I go to my home range and I know there's that yucca right there. When that starts twitching, that's 7 miles an hour with the wind. Well, it's good to have those experiences because you can rely back on them for the individual parts and pieces. You can build that library of references for what the wind's doing. But I give you enough time to absorb that, and then I'm going to take you away from that and put you in a new situation, a little bit out of your comfort zone, and we're going to build that library to be a lot broader. To me, a mature shooter is a guy who can show up, knows how to laze the targets, knows how to look at the position building problems that are ahead of him, give a good solution, and then sit down, read the wind, address his data accurately and reliably, and then tie the math from the data card for wind corrections into the art of what he's seeing out there on the range and making his best judgment to how to tie those together.
Now, we are here at Bluestone Ranch.
We are, yep.
Tell us a little bit about these facilities here. I know you do offer training in Wyoming as well, but this is a pretty impressive place for the folks
this place
that know
is amazing. Yeah.
that don't know about it. Can you kind of give them a visual tour of kind of what, if they were
Right.
here, what they would experience?
Okay. So to show up your accommodations, if you're going to stay here at the BSR, we have the bunkhouse. John's recently just had the bunkhouse renovated. It's gorgeous. In my opinion, it's the nicest digs in the area. There's a kitchen. There's 2 bathrooms. It's all clean. There's no bugs, all that stuff like you might expect.
It's air conditioned.
Yeah, it's air conditioned. All the, you got pots, pans. If you want to cook here, you want to cook breakfast in the morning, you can do that. You can hang out, and there's a common area in there. We've got bunks to accommodate, I want to say 11 or 12 people. So it's pretty nice. It's new. It's within a year and a half that it's been renovated. So then as far as ranges go, we've got like a 300-yard zero range that we can use, kind of a flat range. So that's really good for doing zeroing exercises, and positional shooting will just make smaller targets or varying sizes. That way guys can challenge themselves to their capability level, and it's a kind of a can scenario, but it offers a lot of training quickly. And then right behind us right now, about, 50, 100 yards away is the KD range, known distance range. We've got targets from 400 on the 100-yard increments out to 1,000, and then we've got a 1340 target out there as well as a mile target. Now, the real thing that everybody comes for, though, is the rim shooting. The rim is this just undulating terrain. There's rocks, there's trees, there's brush, there's prone, there's off prone in the other direction. There's tabletops to shoot off of a stone. Just whatever, whether you want to shoot tripod or you want to do some weird stuff that, it's real field shooting. This is not something that you can just go and create on a flat range.
Yeah, and that's to me what I found particularly useful is typically we would encounter either a like an 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock switchy wind, or something coming from behind, and that doesn't always happen. But the cool thing is that here, a student can say, hey, I really need to work with switchy winds, and you can literally find a spot on the property where you have those switchy winds. Or if somebody says, hey, my problem is a wind coming in at 90 degrees, either direction, and literally without waiting for the weather to change, you can just go to a different part of the property, and that I think is just a huge differentiator.
Yep, it's a facilitator. And so, there's a lot of people don't realize this, but there's almost 30 firing positions around the rim. And within those firing positions, I can move you 10 feet left or right and completely change your shooting experience for the next 5 minutes. There are parts, for example, on the west course where, we're sitting here right now and we've got wind coming in pretty much at a 90-degree angle. So now we're looking at picking up on the gusts and the drop-offs, right? Occasionally it'll pan around a little bit. Maybe we got a little bit of a headwind or a lot of a headwind depending on the day. You'll see anywhere from 3 miles an hour to 33 miles an hour. It's not uncommon. But I can also say, okay, we're going to turn around 180 degrees and now we can have a fishtailing wind. Or, I can bring it bring us to another spot where we've got wind coming in from 45 degrees off, which completely changes how we address the math and what we're looking at for indicators. When the vegetation's blowing this way and you just see it flopping down and hey, we got mirage, we don't have mirage, that's one sort of aspect of shooting the wind. But when it's coming right at us and then it's switching back, forth, left, right, you really got to stay on top of not only the vegetation for the speed, but your mirage for direction, which we had that yesterday, and I think it's a blast.
So Brian, one of the observations I had made, having attended many other types of rifle clinics, is yourself, your assistant instructor Aaron, were very good about identifying specific things with students that you could help them with, offer suggestions, individual coaching. Tell us about how you do that, how you identify the things that a participant might need that could help them get to the next level.
So a lot of it is just being switched on and paying attention to the student. You listen to them before you start shooting, you watch them shoot, you understand what their perceptions of what it is that they're doing right and what they're doing wrong. And through the course of that, I'm going to key in on certain, back to those, those, I don't want to say skill level 1 task, but the parts, the individual parts and pieces. Like, hey, this guy's slapping his trigger, this guy's not getting good support under the rear of the rifle. And we're just going to watch them and wait for them to do it correctly or not correctly. And when they're doing it right, you say, hey, that's, you're doing it right, or you just don't say anything, let them keep doing their thing. And when they do it wrong, there's no black and white in this stuff, by the way. What works great for him doesn't necessarily work great for me. But so a lot of it's just watching the shooter as well as what's going on down at the target. Like, I'll give you an example. A lot of times I'll have a student where they'll be close to on the target, but it's left, right, left, right, left, right. And the first thing that keys in on me is that they're not staying level. So then you kind of get behind them at the same time, and you're getting your angle so you can see their level, and you can say, hey, make sure you're staying level. And then all of a sudden it's like maybe they make one more wind call that's close but not quite on, but then they're immediately able to make that correction. And a lot of what I like to do to sort of reel that stuff in and to give them positive training experiences is to find little drills. Like, for example, we were talking about picking up on the wind changes yesterday. So one of the suggestion that I made was, hey, get on your gun, get it ready. Not necessarily looking through the scope, but every minute I want you to fire a shot. And we had a very narrow target for you at a pretty healthy distance. The target was only 2 to 3 miles an hour wide, and it forced you to get back on the glass, reevaluate what the wind condition was doing, and engage the target.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shade over 500 yards, and I was doing it with a 308. And if you would have told me before this class that I could make first round hits on a 2 mile an hour wide target with my 308, I wouldn't have believed you. But I think just the facilities, and I think it's not only you that's instructing, you have
Aaron.
an assistant,
Yeah.
Aaron, you have...
He's awesome.
Right. And what I really liked about it is I actually spent some time with Aaron, and that's what I like to see. While you have structure to the course, there's enough flexibility where I could say, hey, Aaron, could you spot for me? And, tell me what you're seeing, and then let me try to do it. And like today, with my 308, I'm able to make first round hits at 1,000 yards.
Sitting.
Well, sitting and
4 times in a row.
that felt pretty good, but
That was impressive.
And well, the offhand I was pretty happy with that as well.
Sure.
But the thing is that it just gave me a whole lot of confidence, because before, I was just kind of guessing. It's like, okay, I knew the general direction hold, but I didn't know, should it, be like a quarter value, half value, and so you really gave me a method to really read the wind, and that for me is, kind of got me just off a sideways kind of plateau to now I think skill wise.
And go ahead.
I wanted to change the topic, but if you had something else to add.
Yeah, and one of the other kind of concepts, 2 things actually I want to touch on real quick. One of the concepts that I like to leave guys with is I don't want you you're going to come to the course and yeah, I'm going to teach you stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm teaching you how to be aware and how to train yourself. I want guys to go home from that class, practice all the stuff that we taught them, give them drills, have them thinking about how to train themselves. I don't, this isn't the whole training experience. 90% of the training experience happens on your own time. It's 3 days, I can only do so much. But you can build on that on your own, and you can improve upon that. Another thing, too, is that we like to continually, our feeling is like guys are investing in, a fair amount of money in a class, right? To me, it's a significant amount of money, and I take that seriously. And Aaron takes that seriously. So what we want to do is we want to constantly be rotating behind students. I've been in training before where, they give you the task and they're over there, talking, drinking coffee, texting their girlfriend or whatever. That's not my approach. It's not Aaron's approach. We're going to make sure that we're continually rotating behind people, giving them, when to step back and let guys do their thing. But just because I'm letting you do your thing doesn't mean that I'm not watching.
Right.
So.
Now, let's talk a little bit about students, if we can, because I noticed one is there's different skill levels, and you offer course or curriculum appropriate to the skill level. But touch on also the fact that we had people coming in through not only caliber precision rifle, but Thunder Beast arms, JP rifles, and so on.
So, kind of going back to that, I wanted to have training classes that were appropriate to the level of the student. So a lot of times, we do have standardized skill level tasks like, can you do this, and can you do this? Yes, okay, that puts you in the level 2 class. Can you do this and this? No, I can't. That keeps you in level 2. If you can, then that pushes you up to the level 3. If a guy comes in and doesn't really know anything per se, then that's definitely a skill level 1. That being said, though, I feel better when I've got a guy that's come through my skill level 1 because there's certain fundamental stuff that, even advanced shooters, I think, don't really know. Some of the finer points of setting up your rifle, some of the wind opening stuff that we cover in the level 1, things like that. Some stuff for ballistic software that the level 2 guys don't necessarily know. Being able to adjust your data on the fly and stuff like that. So we try to get the guys in the right class to start with. But sometimes guys, you're close, but not quite, but then you're over, on the right side for other skills. And I like to run a flexible class. I can take guys that are marginally in a level 2 or guys that are definitely beyond level 2 when they show up after talking with them. They're just more square, they've got more experience behind them. And we can really adapt a class to left and right during the same class. So we try to maintain flexibility. Obviously, we want to get the right guy in the right class, but it's not an easy thing to figure out necessarily over a 5-minute phone call. Most often we get it right, but even when we're not, or like, hey, I've got another a student that called me up and said, hey, I can't make it to level 3, but I really want to come to a class before this and this. And I'm like, all right, come on down to level 2. You're going to get a little bit of review on some stuff, but then I promise I'm going to push you hard in some other directions, once we get on the rim. Level 2 class and level 3 class is 90+% field shooting, so that offers me a lot of flexibility. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, follow up a little bit about some of your students, where they're coming from.
Okay, so I train for multiple different companies. I own my own company. It's Colorado Precision Rifle. We have a wholesale retail side, and then there's the training side. The majority of what we're doing really is training. But then I also train for JP Enterprises down here. John owns the Blue Steel Ranch down here, and we've had great success with that. I've also been training for Thunder Beast suppressors since about 2014 full-time, and part-time before that, probably back to about 2010. So we draw a very wide variety of students. They're different companies with different missions and different products. So it's a pretty... I've had just incredible luck with the students that we've had down here. So,
and so again, if folks would like to work with you, they can go direct,
or through Thunder Beast or through JP. So it'll. And that being said, like, you guys have questions, feel free to give me a call directly. More than happy to talk to everybody. Sometimes hard to get in touch with, like during a class. That's really my main focus. But after that, I'm by all means available. So
what's a follow-on like? I mean, when somebody's taken a class what's kind of that after class relationship? I mean, what can folks expect after they've taken the class?
Well, typically, I get a lot of students that call me back with questions like, "Hey, we talked about this in class, and I wasn't really clear in my notes," or, I was listening to this other thing, and I had a question, and so I get a lot of follow-up questions, which is great. I mean, to me, that's part of the customer service. It's part of the process, really. Well, you're here at the class or the course. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. There's a lot of information flying out there, and we're not going to absorb all of that at once, right? And obviously, the more advanced we are, the smaller the takeaways are going to be. But those are the harder nuggets to get. So I get a lot of questions, follow-up questions, whether it's pertaining to something from the class or, hey, I want to buy a new rifle. And real quick on the rifle tangent, I have a lot of guys that call up, well, I want to take a class, but I don't have a rifle. And I want to buy a gun. What do you suggest? I suggest you buy nothing. Call me up. Tell me that you want to borrow a rifle for the class. We'll get a demo gun in your hand. If we've got, JP precision rifles. We've got a couple of bolt guns and JP chassis, things like that. We've got scopes. We've got sand socks. You could pretty much say, hey, I want to show up to a class, not have invested anything other than earplugs, iPro, and a notebook, and we're going to supply that for you. And the thing that I like about doing that is that it prevents guys from making, cry once, buy once. Don't buy the wrong thing, show up to class, and realize by the end of class that you bought the wrong thing.
Oh, I've made that mistake.
So one thing that we haven't talked about, I'm curious, perhaps some of our viewers are, tell us a little bit about your start. Like, what was the genesis of kind of your shooting, and how did you leverage that into what you're doing with CP rifle?
So I started off shooting 4-position small bore as a kid, and I loved doing that. It was just sort of, all the other things going on in life. If I just wanted to get away from everybody, relax, I'd grab my air rifle, go down in the basement and shoot. We had club meetings that we'd go to every month, or actually it was like every week, throughout a certain part of the year. As I got older, I actually stepped away from it for a couple of years, and then when I was late teens, early 20s, I started shooting again. Did a little bit of bench rest shooting there, just enough really to realize how to reload right, and then took the next 10 years to figure out what of that I could just let go of. Throughout, that time after that, so I was doing a lot of just getting into the longer range stuff, especially as I moved out to Colorado, where I had more real estate available. 2002, I joined the Army and deployed, got back from there, went through selection for Special Forces. And then while I was in the Q course, I had an instructor who was a great shooter, got me introduced to shooting some F-class stuff. And while I was in that, I did a little bit of across the course and some IPSC shooting as well. By the way, for those guys out there, if you want to get really good at your trigger control, start shooting a pistol. It's one of the best ways to sort of isolate that. Then after the Q course, I graduated, the Q course, came out to Colorado, started shooting a lot more of the field matches, kind of let go of the F-class stuff. Shot it for a little while, a little bit more across the course, and actually shot a 3-gun match or two, a little more pistol stuff. But mostly now, I've been focusing on the field matches. And while I was in Special Forces, I also got to shoot the international sniper comp as well as the USASOC. And then from there, I got actually injured in Iraq, just back cumulative injuries. Ended up down at our sniper detachment. The group sergeant major's like, hey, I know you had this experience from the international. I know you guys can shoot. I'd like you to go down there and help stand the detachment back up. So I spent about 3 years down there from about 2010 to 13 as teaching level 1 and 2 SOTA courses, continuing to shoot the field stuff. In about 14, I was getting out, and I was like, well, what do I want to do for a living? Go back to swing a hammer. I really like being outside. I love shooting. I love teaching shooting. So I kind of just carried on with that, and here I am. So really, by and large, I've been a shooting instructor since about 2010. So.
Well, you mentioned that folks could come here without a rifle, and you'll supply it, and sometimes you can have a pretty special treat for the folks. Maybe you want to talk a bit about the 224 Valkyrie, and
I love that thing.
Actually some of the stuff that you're doing around that cartridge in association with some industry leaders.
Yeah. So spent quite a bit of time talking with the guys at Federal about it. I was really excited when I heard that they were coming out with the cartridge. I've always liked the idea of something in that realm, but they really, in my opinion, they nailed it right. They got long barrel life, you got great ballistics, a heavy enough bullet to move the target, but great recoil management at the same time. And the ammo that I've been shooting out of mine has been really low extreme spreads and super accurate. I mean, you saw that some of the groups that we were shooting with it, it's sub half minute of angle. We shot it out to 1,000. It was holding great elevation out there. And the rifle that I'm shooting it in right now is a JP. It's a 20-inch barrel, 224, and then I put a 5-inch Thunder Beast 30 cal Ultra Can on it. And it's light, it's handy, it's accurate. It's got big gun ballistics, but that light gun, you could carry that thing out, hunting through the mountains, or you could shoot a PRS match with it. You could have your 5-year-old kid behind it shooting it. It's just, to me, it's the closest thing to that rifle that's ever fit all those niches at once.
Yeah, and Ed and I have had a chance to actually try this rifle.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll roll a little bit of B-roll so you guys can see us shooting it. Beautiful rifle, but more importantly, superbly accurate. And I love the fact that there's zero recoil.
I know. Yeah, and I know when we were at SHOT Show and we saw Frank Galley, he came up to us and he said, "You guys have got to check out the Valkyrie." And it's really hard to describe it. I mean, like a 600-yard target that with like when I'm punching at it with the 308, it's effort, right? You're managing some recoil and you got to watch for the wind. But then I got behind, I started hitting that target with the 224, and it was like, boom, hit, boom, hit. I mean, that fast.
Yeah, effortlessly.
It was. I mean, it was almost like it was almost like playing with a toy. I mean, I know a firearm's not a toy, but it was just the giddiness. Like, I mean, I didn't realize you could actually accomplish that with such a low recoil. And I mean, that target moved. I mean, I mean, it hit it with authority. So just an incredible cartridge.
And even
I would bet that probably before the year's out, either Ed and I or probably both of us will have one.
A JP224 Valkyrie, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've shot the thing out to 1,300, and it still moves targets. It still holds elevation. And the JP gun, it's awesome because you can turn the gas down to get the recoil, to get the gas down just low enough to operate the gas system. Give it one little click plus. That detent gas block is awesome for doing those fine-tune adjustments. The Thunder Beast can brings the noise suppression way down, especially for a 5-inch can. That's amazing.
Well, and the 30 caliber can, no less. I mean, that's what's great about those. I mean, we both own Thunder Beast cans, and you can use a 30 caliber can, and it's a very fungible suppressor. I mean, you can put it on just about anything.
I don't know what fungible means, but I agree.
Well, let's talk a little bit about shifting gears, different rifle platforms. We spent some time today on Rimfire.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about that and how that plays into either your training or what you do with some of your students.
Okay. Well, the first thing that's great about a Rimfire is that I can say, if I said to you, hey, we're going to show up and I need you to bring 150 rounds of Rimfire ammo at $1.50 a piece, or all that time on the reloading bench, or $2 a piece, and we're going to shoot positional stuff, you're going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to burn up my barrel. I don't want to drag that gun around. I don't want to spend that much for ammo. So the Rimfires are a way that I can get the round count up for the muscle memory. And there's two parts of training. There's the muscle memory, building those M-grams, and then there's the cerebral part, right? And the positional shooting is, yes, it's cerebral, but a large portion of it is building the muscle memory. So I can get the guys on the range. And the thing about the 22s is that because the dwell time of the bullet in the barrel is so much longer, it exacerbates everybody's mistakes.
Yes.
The next misconception is that rimfires aren't accurate. I'll let you expand on that for a second.
Oh, we were shooting probably smaller than a dime-sized target, 50 yards, repeatedly.
Yeah, I mean, the size, I mean, I would say
probably about the size of a little pinky thumbnail.
Yeah, I mean, we were hitting that.
And that was off barricades.
Yeah,
I
mean,
so.
So a Savage with good SK ammo it groups, right? So the idea there is that we're going to get a high round count doing positional shooting. I can go everything from shooting prone off the bipod to shooting with the slings. I like to get guys shooting with a sling because to me that's a fundamental. And once you realize how fundamentally important and how easy that it is to incorporate the sling not only as a cuff sling but as a 2-point sling into your shooting, once I prove that to somebody, then they're going to be a lot more likely to incorporate that into their field shooting, like shooting off tripods, shooting off different whatever, the rifle getting preloaded into your shoulder, creating that triangular type shape into your position to give these the stability. So yeah, we'll spend, a portion of a day, let's say 3 to 4 hours, somewhere in there, probably more like 3, shooting the rimfires and going through all the different fundamental positions, and then get into some off your belly shooting, like barricade. Level 1 we might get into a little bit of, anyway. So yeah, it's to me it's a great way of incorporating it. And it's funny actually. I've had a lot of guys that were, I shouldn't say a lot of guys. I had a bunch of friends that I hit up when I was starting to teach on my own. Hey, what do you think about rimfires? Like, nobody wants to shoot a rimfire in a class. And then I've had quite a few people show up to class and they're like, oh, we're shooting rimfires, and they're kind of like, and then by the end of the class, you can barely get the gun out of their hands.
Well, I mean, it's true because this was our last day. We were tired, and you said, okay, let's do the rimfire. And I'll admit, I was like, okay, but I mean, I didn't want to stop.
Yeah.
I was kind of like feeling the same way. I was like, I got to go do rimfires. And then before you know it, you put 5, 10, 15, 50 rounds to the rimfire, and you're giggling. I mean, I think we all giggled a couple of times watching those things spin around the bar.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait now to get my Voodoo Gunworks 22. And, it's just, yeah. Yeah, I'm already planning out my little 22 range in the yard.
Right.
And once that brass hits the ground, you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No reloading.
No reloading.
No reloading, yeah.
No reloading at all.
Awesome. Brian, about the facilities, are these facilities open to other shooting enthusiasts?
Oh, yeah. So, for example, Competition Dynamics does the Team Safari and the Steel Safari down here. They've run the Resurgence match down here. The Team Challenge has been run down here. The guys from Butch's have run a PRS or NRL, I don't remember which, match down here. And John is very open and is actually, one of the things that have been talked about for sure is about getting, other disciplines down here, like, whether it's 3-gun or pistol, classes or law enforcement and police. We've had military down here as well. So if guys are looking for, as a group, a place to come and train, it's the facilities are definitely available. And part of the perk of that is that we have on-site, we got the bunkhouse. So, like, for example, we had a Special Forces detachment come down, and they, used the place. They actually had their own instructors. I came down, they were my guys, so I came down and kind of hung out with them a little bit anyway. Tried to add a little bit in here and there where I could. But, they had the bunkhouse. They were able to cook here. Being good Green Berets, they did, midday barbecues. But, they would go and do some long-range stuff during the day and then hit up some. There's also a flat range down towards the beginning of the property. It's about 300 meters long and maybe 150 meters deep. Berms 270. Lots of props and targets. There's targets all over this place that most people have never seen. There's a little pistol 360 almost berm down here. So it's a great facility. There's a lot of stuff that could go on down here for sure.
And so to be clear, so for folks out there who might be instructors and maybe they're looking to upgrade their facilities, they could contact John at JP Rifles and he can let them know about the specifics of using these facilities.
Yep. And I would, if you guys call JP looking for someone to talk to about it, I would call and ask for Jesse.
Okay, Jesse.
Yep, Jesse or Dave.
Excellent.
So,
Brian, let me tell you, we'd really like to thank you for opening your doors to us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we want to thank you on behalf of our audience for sharing more information about what you do at Colorado Precision Rifle and your association with JP Rifles, Blue Steel Ranch, Thunder Beast Arms, and so on. So, guys, be sure to check out Brian's company, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends on Facebook.
And don't forget that, whether you work directly through Colorado Precision Rifle or Thunder Beast or JP Rifles, they all collaborate together to provide some really top shelf training. Folks, remember, life's an adventure.
Stay on target.